Am I in the wrong for throwing away my husband's Father's Day gifts after what he did on Mother's Day? My husband and I have 2 kids, 6-year-old boy and 8-month-old girl. He told me for 2 weeks leading up to Mother's Day that he had an entire weekend planned for me. This is not normal, but there's been years in the past where I did complain and feel hurt because he didn't really do much. But I always went all out for him on Father's Day and I just felt unappreciated. So I'm thinking that he finally understood where I was coming from and was going to make it special for me this year. I quite literally only asked for a massage and he repeatedly said that he couldn't give me a massage because it wasn't enough. At this point, I'm truly thinking that this man went all out. Anyway, Friday rolls around and a bunch of people start showing up. He invited a good 10 to 15 people over. I think I knew 2 people. He called it the Mother's Day bonfire. We had a fire all right, but I was the only one who chased the kids around all evening. My 6-year-old while holding the baby and some other person's 2 kids because they weren't watching them. And quite literally, no one spoke to me. I wasn't acknowledged until the very end of the evening, and that was by my husband's buddy who told me that he was stealing my husband to go out 4-wheeling. It's like 11 p.m. at this point and everyone, except me, was drinking. I said my husband wasn't going anywhere. I even said this to my husband. You're drinking, you're not going anywhere. He took that as, oh, I need to find a DD and then I can go. So he asked the neighbor to drive him around and took off with everyone. I'm extremely hurt at this point because this was my promised weekend and I got stuck with other people's kids. Wasn't spoken to at all, had a mess to clean up, and now my husband's taking off. I explained how hurt I am the next morning. He says that he gets it and apologizes and says that he had too much to drink and wasn't really thinking clearly. Okay, I get it. It's whatever. We didn't do anything Saturday because he spent half of the day sleeping off a hangover. Well, Sunday rolls around and his boss calls him at 6 a.m. and asks him to come into work because they are short-staffed, and he said yes. So I expressed hurt and said, but it's Mother's Day. And he says, I know, I'm sorry, I just don't want to pass up the opportunity for more hours, which I get that too. So whatever. He gets home at 5 p.m. and starts getting the kids dressed and ushers toward the door, so I'm thinking we're finally going to go celebrate. We end up going on a walk. I love walking, but 5 minutes in and he's complaining and has to turn around because of the black flies. They weren't even bad. When we get back home, he lays on the couch and says, oh, your gift is in the truck. So I go down and it's a $5 storage container for sugar and flour. I do like stuff like this, but I'm so hurt at this point. I asked him if I could at least get a massage and he says, I'm sorry, babe, I'm just so tired, and falls asleep around 8 p.m. when he usually doesn't even go to bed until midnight or 1 in the morning. I just sat there crying. I took the 3 gifts that I had already bought him for Father's Day and chucked them in the trash can. Personalized items that cost me more than I want to admit, but I don't even care anymore. He found them in the garbage this morning and asked me what they were doing there and why they were in the trash covered in the food, and I told him that they were Father's Day gifts and left it at that. He's now saying that he tried to make my weekend special and that he's hurt by me throwing away the gifts to retaliate against him for it not turning out the way that he wanted it to.
The goody church girl that unalived her entire family when she was only 16. The Caffey family was seen as wholesome, pure, big church family. Got mom, dad, 2 little brothers, and then an only daughter named Erin who had just started her teenage years. Like I said, they were a big church family. Erin even sang in the church choir. She was homeschooled, really only hung out with church kids. But at the start of high school, Erin started public school. For the first time, she started hanging out with a new crowd and even got a new boyfriend. Erin was only 16 years old when she started dating 18-year-old bad boy named Charlie. Erin's parents did not like Charlie. They felt like he made a terrible first impression, but they still tried to get along with him for their daughter's sake. They invited him to a lot of family dinners. They invited him to church, but they still just felt like Charlie was obsessive and aggressive towards their teenage daughter. Erin's grades were slipping, her attitude was changing, so her parents just felt like it'd be better to sit their teenage daughter down and ask her to break up with her boyfriend. To their surprise, Erin agreed to break up with Charlie to their face. Because behind their backs, Erin ran to her boyfriend Charlie and 2 of her friends, another guy also named Charlie and his girlfriend Bobby, and told them that she wanted her parents dead. Erin was literally begging the 2 Charlies to not only unalive her parents, but her 2 little brothers as well, claiming that her parents abused her and that's why they all had to go. 16-year-old Erin instructed the 2 Charlies to break into her house while her entire family was sleeping. They went to her parents' room first and just started shooting, shot her dad, Terry, 11 times. And then they used a samurai sword on her mother, Penny. And they started searching for Erin's 2 little brothers. 13-year-old Matthew is looking at Charlie, who, remember, has been over to their house many times for dinner, and he's begging, Charlie, why are you doing this? And Charlie said nothing. He just shot the little 13-year-old boy in the face. And then the 2 Charlies found 8-year-old Tyler hiding in his closet, absolutely terrified, and they used the samurai sword on him as well. And don't get me wrong, this entire situation is absolutely evil, but using a sword on an 8-year-old? The two Charlies then set the house on fire and left. But somehow Aaron's father, Terry, despite being shot 11 times, was still alive. And he knew he had to live to tell everyone who just did this to his family. So he was able to crawl out of his burning house to his neighbor's home to tell him what just happened. The investigators start quickly arresting everyone that's involved. They found Aaron at Charlie's house hiding. She tried to pretend that she was a victim and that they kidnapped her after they got done unaliving all her family, but they quickly found out that was not true, and everyone involved and her own text messages pointed her as the mastermind behind the entire thing. Both Charlies will spend the rest of their lives in prison. Bobby got 20 years for just being in the car, and Aaron's gonna serve at least 40 years in prison. Surprisingly, to this day, Aaron still has a relationship with her father, who still visits her in prison. He says he does not believe his teenage daughter was the mastermind, despite all evidence pointing that way, and says that he truly believes that his daughter was manipulated by Charlie.
Am I wrong for telling my husband that I won't stop seeing my brother-in-law? Story time. So me and my ex-husband divorced when my children were 17 and 14. And about a year after the divorce, my ex actually passed away. My ex was paying child support, but obviously that stopped the day he died. The children inherited everything, but I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't much. Things could have been incredibly rough for me as a single mum, but luckily his brother stepped up to fill his shoes. He took the girls on the weekend and basically bought them anything they needed. Anything from clothing, school supplies, groceries when I was struggling to buy them. My brother-in-law very much spoiled them. My eldest was very much into horses, so he paid for her to get riding lessons. My other one really enjoyed music and liked playing the piano, so he paid for her piano lessons and even bought her a piano. And when they grew out of that, he was ready to indulge them in something else. I tried talking to my brother-in-law about this, but he just said that he was more than happy to do it. He said that he really wanted them to experience lots of things and that they should find their own interests. He said that this will help their brain development. I personally disagree. I was not in the financial position to push too hard on this. We're paying so much for the girls and I was so grateful. The only thing I really needed to pay for was our rent. I later remarried a wonderful guy who we'll call Steve. Steve already had 2 children and then we had a baby together. And things have been brilliant for the most part. However, kids are smart, right? Steve's daughters and the daughter that we have together started to cotton on that my daughters were getting so much more than they were, obviously because their uncle was paying. My husband was not a fan of this situation, and over years we would have these ongoing arguments. It came to a head recently when we were discussing how we were going to send 2 of our oldest children to college. Me and Steve now make enough money to live a very good lifestyle, middle class, with 5 kids, but nowhere near enough to put them through college. The reality is that they will have to take out school loans. And this is when I found out that my daughter had already spoken to her uncle about it, and Uncle Dave has said that he will pay for her to go to college. Does Uncle Dave want to pay anything for me? I was really happy for my daughter in this situation because it meant that she could go on and fulfill her dreams. Steve, on the other hand, was not so pleased. He got so red and began screaming. He was saying that it just is not fair that my children get everything paid for. He wanted me to call their uncle and tell them to stop spoiling them. He even went as far as to say to cut them off completely. 0 contact, not even allowed to talk to them. I understand why he's so upset. However, I don't think there is any need to go 0 contact. Kind of giving controlling. On the one hand, I do agree that it isn't 100% fair on the other kids. And on the other hand, I can't hold my daughters back from something so wonderful. So what do you think I should do?
My boyfriend confessed that he got his ex-girlfriend pregnant. And yes, I took him back, but you'll never guess why. This boyfriend and I started dating almost 6 months ago. We actually met at the gym. But back then, he was going to the gym with his girlfriend every single day. But that wouldn't stop me from staring once in a while. He was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. Of course, I knew that he was off limits. Fast forward a few months. I noticed that he started coming to the gym on his own. Finally, a few weeks later, he introduces himself to me. He was so formal. He shook my hand and said, "I've been coming to the gym with my girlfriend and that's who you saw me with. But I'm no longer with her. I would love to take you out on a date." How could I say no to that? Especially after he caught me staring at him so many times. He knew I was into him. We went out on 3 dates exactly before he asked me to be his girlfriend. On the very first date, he told me that his ex had been stalking him. That's when he points at the window. His ex is sitting in her car staring at us while we're inside the restaurant. Then he just started to cry. I realized this was serious. He was so stressed. And after that, we were inseparable. But things just get worse because she started stalking me. On our very first date, he told me that his ex had been stalking him for months. She was possessive and obsessed with him, so much so that he pointed out the window and she was sitting in her car watching us at the restaurant. That's when he just started to cry. I felt really bad for him. I could see how stressed he was, but I also needed to think about myself. But no, I didn't. Instead, we started hanging out every single day, and something would happen every single day. His ex-girlfriend started showing up to my house whenever he came over. Thankfully, I live with my parents. I felt safe knowing my parents were home even though this girl was knocking on my door. She would also call my phone every single day at 3 a.m. And then the worst part is she started showing up to my job. Now, this is when we realized instead of stalking him, she started stalking me. The worst part was when she showed up to the gym dressed exactly like I was. She wore the same red leggings and sports bra, and even styled her hair the same way I did. My boyfriend and I left the gym immediately, but she followed us. This girl was completely obsessed with me. She stalked me for over a month. One day my boyfriend shows up to my parents' house bawling. That's when my dad told him that he needed to leave. My parents were terrified this girl would do something to me. And that's when he just said to us, "She's pregnant." A few days before we went out on our first date, they ended up hooking up one last time. Apparently she had been begging him. She swears up and down that the baby is his, but my parents don't buy it. My boyfriend now feels extremely guilty for bringing her into my life. Now my boyfriend has to take her to all the doctor's appointments. And she asked me to step aside. I didn't know what else to do, so I broke up with him. With a caveat, we're still seeing each other in secret, but this has stopped her from stalking me. Once the baby's born, there will be a paternity test.
Am I the astronaut for ruining my wife's birthday by disinviting her from a theatrical performance she was looking forward to because she chose a weekend road trip over staying for a crucial household responsibility? My 30 male, wife 31 female have been together for 5 years in total. She works from home and I work from the office. I was sent by my team across the state lines for a week and was set to return on Tuesday. Now, this weekend was extremely crucial for one of us to be there as the landlord was sending over professionals to get the vents cleaned out. Currently, the temperatures are fine and we don't need AC, but soon we will. Also, the next time the professionals will be available through the landlord will be several weeks from now, and by that time summer would have already rolled in. I had requested my wife to stay put on the weekend I was going away because the landlord was doing it free of charge, and if we were to have professionals ourselves, we would have to pay a couple $100. It's important for us to get the vents cleaned since we turn on the AC. One day there was a terrible smell, maybe a rat died in the thing, and we quickly closed them up and have since been opening the windows. I was out of state assuming the vents were cleaned out. When I returned, my wife said that she was invited on a road trip by her girlfriends and she couldn't say no as she hadn't seen them in a long time. I was furious for being so irresponsible. I told her fine, the extra cost for getting the cleaners now will be deducted from her fund money account. We have 3 bank accounts, or 2 individual accounts for fund money and 1 joint account. She absolutely refused, saying that I get to go out and have fun and beers while she works from home and deserves an outing and didn't think of saying no. Edit. We both had agreed she would supervise things, and she never let me know that she went out with her friends. I never gave her orders. This was an important job to fix, and I wanted her to act like my partner for once. This caused an argument, but no resolution, and she kicked me out of our bedroom. This made me more mad than her refusal to pay in full or staying home. I felt emasculated for being kicked out of my own goddamn bedroom, and that too for 3 nights. Her birthday was also coming up in a few days, and I had managed to score some tickets for a musical theater performance in our city. They're fairly exclusive, and she was looking forward to us going, and she's a big fan of what they were going to be performing that night. I disinvited her, and she flew into a mad rage. I told her that this is her consequence for what she did, prioritizing a road trip and kicking me out of our room, and didn't do, staying home for the professionals and agreeing to compensate from her fun money account. I instead extended an invite to my other friend, who happily accepted, and we went. Even on her birthday, she took the time and effort to dress up and presented herself to me, and casually said if we are supposed to leave by now. It's almost as if she forgot what happened, still thinking I wouldn't go through with what I said I'd do. I shrugged my shoulders and said she was delusional for even thinking that. I left the house with her looking paler than ever. It was oddly satisfying. When I came back, she was crying, but still looked like she was seething. She screamed at me for ruining a birthday over a few $100s and said she can never forgive me for what I did. I reminded her she kicked me out of our room. How can she expect me to be nice to her? And that I was glad to know she was miserable all day. Did I go too far?
Am I wrong for kicking my mom out of my dad's old house after finding out what she's been telling my wife? I, 33 male, am beyond angry about this. Some of my siblings are telling me it was an overreaction while also mad at what she did. I'd really like some thoughts about this because the house seems divided. My wife Cara and I were friends for 3 years. She was in a very toxic and abusive relationship for 3 years until she had begged us, me and our closest friends, to help her get out. It was difficult, but we made it possible. We all pitched in for her to stay as far as possible while she got a restraining order and all of that jazz. We each took turns going to visit, and then she found out she was pregnant, so I helped out more. Her ex passed from an overdose when my stepson, 7 male, was 4 months old. So since then, we all became sort of like uncles and aunts to him. Around that time, I knew I developed feelings for her, but we never ever did anything because she had her son and personal issues to process. It didn't feel right at the time. But yes, we did start a relationship 3 years later. She's the one who first admitted she's in love with me, so things went from there. We just got married. She's 5 months pregnant with our second child. I will say that yeah, my mom had issues at the start of our relationship because she believed Cara was faking what happened to her just to make me feel sorry for her and take care of them. We went through a period of not talking until she apologized, so we mended things somewhat. My mom came to stay at our house, which was my dad's house, until he decided to give ownership to me when they moved. He passed away 10 months ago, and with the economy, my mom couldn't stay where they were living before. We are still trying to work out where she can live long term. I heard my mom get into an argument with my wife because she was trying to redecorate the nursery against Cara's wishes. All I heard was my mom telling her that she's not the lady of the house just because her fake victim sob story worked on me. She looked flustered when I demanded her to tell me what that meant, and basically she held on to the same belief, but she was willing to put up with my choices on who I marry so she doesn't lose me. Everything she had to say infuriated me. And then seeing how upset Cara was by everything, I called my brother to come pick my mom up because she can't stay here right now. My mom wouldn't stop crying not to do this to her just for being honest. She's still at my brother's, but they keep trying to talk to me to let her come back because this was my dad's house, and of course she wants to feel closer to him. But after asking Cara if this is the first time she said anything, she revealed my mom has told her numerous times what she thinks of her and kept it from me because she knew it would hurt our relationship. For that reason, I haven't let my mom come back. It's hard because I know what this house means to her and that she's still sad about my dad, but also can't forgive her for upsetting my wife. So, am I the asshole?
6 months ago, my boyfriend of 3 years proposed marriage. He came with his family to do the knocking a month later, and we set the date for the wedding and everything. But for some reason, I kept my engagement a secret. It was only my family and my closest friends who knew about it. Something was telling me not to share the news yet. The wedding preparation was going smoothly. He was the one sponsoring the marriage, and anytime I asked him for money for anything, he just gave me the money fast. Now, when I first started dating my fiancé, 6 months into the relationship, I found out he had cheated on me and impregnated another woman. This broke me and I ended things with him. He wanted me to forgive him and stay with him, but I just couldn't. A few months later, the woman lost the baby and he came back begging again. I still loved him and I wanted to be with him. I made him promise never to cheat on me again, and he did, and I actually believed him. So I took him back and we started dating again. Now, my auntie is a caterer, and it was my plan to have her cater for our wedding ceremony, but my fiancé was against this. He said he had already promised his mother he was going to let a woman from his town cater for the wedding. I was like, how? I have already promised my auntie she was going to be the one to cater for the wedding. This was about to turn into a huge argument. So I just agreed to let the woman from his town do it. He told me not to worry and that the woman's food was delicious. He said he and his mother had eaten from the woman's restaurant several times and that they always enjoy their food. I contacted this woman and I asked her for her prices and she sent everything over. She was very sweet, and from the pictures she showed me, it looked like she knew her job. I booked her for my day and I sent her the money and everything. Now, when I spoke to this woman, she told me she'll be doing the delivery of the food to the venue for free. Now, mind you, this woman is about 2 hours away from where the wedding ceremony will be taking place. Now, a few weeks after this, I was talking to my fiancé about the preparation and everything. When I mentioned that, the woman said she'll be doing the delivery to the venue for free. My fiancé was like, no, tell her we will send someone to pick the food up. And I was like, why? Just the delivery alone was a lot of money. Like, why would you pay when you can get it for free? He got very angry all of a sudden and asked me if it is my money I'll be using. This man twisted the story around and told me I loved arguing about pointless things. To make peace again, I told him I'll send someone to pick the food from the woman, but something felt off. It just didn't make sense to me. Something was telling me that there was more to the situation, so I decided to look into it. I was ready to tell people about our engagement, but for some reason, I just couldn't forget about the situation with the caterer. Something just felt off to me. So I contacted the caterer again. I just wrote to her and told her that my fiancé really loves her food. And she was like, really? Oh, that's great. She asked me his name and I sent her our invitation card. I didn't hear anything from her for about a minute. Then she called my phone. She asked me if this was a prank. And I was like, no, why would I prank you? That was when she told me that she's dating my fiancé. They've been dating for about a year. She said he just broke up with her last week. I was like, what are you talking about? She immediately sent me pictures of the two of them together. I've always felt something was off for some time in our relationship. Now I understood why. But what I didn't understand was why he would let me give our wedding's catering services to his girlfriend. It just didn't make sense. And up until today, I still don't know why he did it. Maybe he felt sorry for her and wanted to appease her or something. I just don't know. I knew there was no way I could marry this man. It will not change. I told her to keep the money for the catering service for the wedding. And I asked her not to tell my fiancé I knew about their relationship. I was expecting a huge sum of money from him to pay for the venue, my wedding dress and engagement dress, the photography, drinks, the ushering services. It was a lot of money. And I wanted to take that money before I broke things off with him. He has wasted my time for 3 years and I deserved it. I waited till I received the money. Then I sent him the pictures of him and the caterer. I called off the wedding that same day. He wanted his money back. And this man literally came to kneel down in front of me to give him back his money. But I told him the money was gone. And my older brother sacked him from my house and asked him never to come close to me ever again. I blocked his number, but he tried to get in touch with me several times. But I didn't mind him. But one good thing that came out of the whole situation is that I became good friends with the caterer. And I won't lie, her food is really delicious.
Am I the astronaut for not wanting to share a personal-sized pizza with 3 other people? This is my first time posting anything and I'm on mobile, so unsure if I'm doing it right. I, female 35, am gluten-free, celiac, and have been for over half my life. My husband, male 35, is not. We had 2 friends stopping by for dinner who are also not gluten-free. My husband suggested we get pizza and mentioned to me that one of the friends only eats chicken as far as meat goes, so I should factor that into my order. I said, well, that doesn't really affect me since I wasn't planning on sharing, but noted. I'll see what options they have for her. Husband freaks out on me because apparently I'm being ungrateful. He asked why I didn't want to share, and I said the gluten-free pizzas are basically personal pizzas, and I regularly eat the whole thing when we order it. I'm supposed to offer half of mine to other people when I can't eat what they are eating? He wouldn't hear me at all and said if I didn't want to share, I could pay for my own pizza myself. This is husband? Yes, this is husband. I don't really care about paying for it myself, but the idea that I'm supposed to give away some of my dinner when I can't eat what the other people are eating is stupid to me. It's not like we're ordering every pizza gluten-free. It just doesn't make sense. They eat my food. I can't eat their food. I understand the principle of offering, but one girlfriend pizza from this place, or one GF pizza? One pizza from this place is only enough for one person. And if we're getting multiple, what does GF mean? Gluten-free. Good. One gluten-free pizza from this place is only enough for one person. If we were getting multiple gluten-free ones, I'd absolutely share. But they got 2 larges for 3 of them. He continued to go on about how ungrateful I was being and said some other stupid stuff before I told him to f*** off and went upstairs. I ended up just going upstairs and not eating or seeing them at all. I came downstairs later and he had ordered me a gluten-free pizza and said from across the room, "Are you ready for your grateful-free pizza? You need to have a better attitude about things that aren't yours in the future." I didn't reply or eat the pizza. I was already heating something else up and hadn't noticed the pizza, but I will eat it later because I'm pregnant and starving all the time. Just for the record, this has happened before several years ago where we ordered pizza and only one gluten-free for me and it arrived and everyone thought mine looked super good. I don't order regular pepperoni or tomato sauce. So the 4 other people, husband included, took over half of my pizza before I even got a bite. It pissed me off because I then didn't have enough food and they still had plenty plus pieces of mine. So perhaps this is a sore subject for me. Again, I'm also pregnant, though this would still bother me if I weren't. Am I the astronaut and being ungrateful? Top comment. NTA, your husband is a big one though. Also thoughtless. Literally. Are you ever heard? OP's response, am I ever heard? I don't know, to be honest. I am generally super go with the flow, and he is very much the one who cares about stuff, so 99% of the time he gets what he wants. I started about a year ago voicing my opinions more, and he told me I was being combative, LOL. I told him he's just used to getting his way, and that it was my fault for not setting proper boundaries for so long. We do have a good relationship most of the time, though, I promise. OP, blink if you need help. We have had that fight, and I told him he could do it if he didn't like how I was doing it. It was re-cleaning the stove, haha. He did therapy for a while, but decided he was fixed, lol, and hasn't been in a while. I'd like for him to go back. He knows he has control issues, and finally understands that they are linked to his anxiety. He's a good person, but doesn't enjoy being called out on his bullshit. It'll be fun when he eventually sees this post. Please show him the post. More info, comment, go with the flow, aka doormat, the one who cares about stuff, aka control freak. Your husband is a big asshole and a bully. OP's response, aka 100% correct. I'm not inherently a doormat, but I kind of became one without realizing it, and he loves to be in control. Anxiety makes him a planner, etc. So it worked out nicely for a long time before it became bad habits. He's not innately controlling necessarily, but he's used to being in control, so it's become a comfortable normal, if that makes sense. Been trying to undo the damage for a while.
Out of all the workout classes I've done, here's just like my honest review of them. Number 1, solid core. You deadass have to low-key fucking hate yourself to go to solid core on like a weekly basis. That class is like, that's not fun for fucking anybody. Like Nicole and I were talking about it. It is hell. Solid core is hell. Don't get me wrong, I love a hard workout class, but this is hard to the point where like you're feeling muscles that you didn't even know fucking existed. Like it almost feels like a punishment. Like when I want to torture myself, I'll go to solid core. Next we have Barry's boot camp, and I'm a fucking whore for Barry's boot camp. I love Barry's. I lived in Chicago. I did unlimited. I quite literally spent my life fucking savings on, because if there's one thing about Barry's boot camp, it's not fucking cheap. I spent my life savings to go unlimited. I would go 6 days a week. It just like, forget what it even does to your body. It is such a euphoric feeling leaving that class and like the red lights. I don't know what the fuck. I've never done ecstasy, but I would assume it's something like that feeling you get after. Next, we have core power yoga. I am a whore, specifically the sculpt class. I'm a whore for anything heated. Like I love a heated class, but I don't know what it is. Core power sculpt that makes me feel like I'm training to go to war. Like it does get really fucking intense in there. Like tell me why it's 90 degrees and we're doing like 2 minutes of cardio doing jumping jacks and shit. You have me lifting the fucking weights. I'm going crazy in my downward dog. Like let me know why the fuck it's that intense, but like I do love it. Rumble quite literally feels like I'm in the club. Like that's the best way to put it, is like it feels like I'm in the club, like a closed down club, and they are just making me box. The music that they were playing, like I genuinely was like, I'm in a club where I can't even fucking see anything. It's so dark in here. I did an 8 a.m. Rumble class. I would have been better off going to Marquee. Like that's just how it felt when I was in there. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like it's too early in the morning for me to be listening to like Skrillex at full volume. Like I'd actually rather die. Cycle is full on a cult. It's a cult. It's the best cult I've ever been a part of, but it is a cult. Okay, and the last one I have for today's video is Hot 8 Yoga. I think that's really in only in California, but like, why the fuck is it so hot in there? I quite literally like had to take a minute and not drive after that class because I actually thought I was gonna like pass out and die. Like I went to a class, it was so hard that like, and so fucking hot, I couldn't even do the class. I just had to like lay there like a little bitch on the floor. It's like, if I wanted that, I would just go into a fucking sauna and stay there for 2 hours. But like Hot 8 Yoga, like what was up with that?
Get ready with me. I tell you about the one and only time I got punched in the face. This wasn't a fight because I wasn't the one fighting. We were in Texas for an Indian wedding. It was in Corpus Christi. I lived in Plano, Texas for a few years, but I've never been there. The night before the wedding was a Sangeet. I can't tell you guys how good this palette is. Super fun. We were having such a good time. I was with all of my college friends at the time. We had a few drinks. We had a few shots. Night was young. We got back to the hotel that we were staying in. Some people had decided to go out clubbing and some people decided to stay back in the hotel and hang out. Me and Pukesh actually stayed back with some of our friends. We were in the lobby having some drinks, and then we walked outside to the front of the hotel. There's probably like 7 or 8 of us. We were in a circle chatting away, having fun. All of a sudden, this girl walks by. I realized at the time that I was the only girl in that group. No idea who this girl was. Everyone kind of felt a little uncomfortable, like, who is this lady? Why is she talking to us? I was drinking at this point, so I'm pretty sure I told her to leave. That's when things started to turn. Because I was the only girl, I was probably the easiest target in the group. And I see her hand raise up, a clenched fist. She punches me to the ground. Let's take a minute to appreciate this PR. Pulled in like a chunk of my hair out, pulled my nose ring off as well. Now, this all happened within like 30 seconds. Everyone is shouting, everyone is screaming, people are calling 911. Rakesh is shouting, he's not about to hit her because he doesn't hit girls. Everyone lifts me up. Meanwhile, this girl is shouting at me. She had an accent, so I figured she probably wasn't from here, telling me to go back to my country and that I don't belong here. That to this day still kind of confuses me. The cops actually showed up within a few minutes and she was arrested on the spot. That